Hey guys, if you're shopping for knives and gear, make sure you check out the description of the video you're watching right now for a link to my Amazon store where I've compiled some of the very best knives and gear. There's a whole bunch of different categories, including some of my own personal recommendations. There's something down here for everybody, so make sure you take a look. Thanks! What's going on, YouTube? Metal Complex here, and today I've got another interesting knife review / knife overview to do with you guys. One that I think is probably overdue for this channel. This is the sadly discontinued ZT0920. This is a Les George design based on the custom Harpy titanium and CPM 20 CV. I personally have lusted over this knife for quite a while, so I'm happy to finally have this in hand to talk about it. Of course, it is on loan from my good friend at Abby Normal 1969. Abby _normal _1969. Give them a follow. It's because of people like that I'm able to actually bring you guys daily knife content. So thank you so much. This knife, like I said, is discontinued. So I cannot give you guys a price or a value on it. The only way to obtain it now is on the secondary market. And we all know that those prices are kind of all over the place. Anyways, let's go ahead and get a measurement on this big guy. Not a small knife at all. Coming in at 9 inches overall. The actual blade length is just shy of 4 inches, like 3.9 inches. Cutting edge is coming in at 3.75, maybe 3.8. Big knife, no question about it. It's not going to be legal in a lot of places, but if you like big knives, this might be one you want to check out. Let's go ahead and do some size comparisons up against the Ontario Rat Model 1. Rat 1 coming in at 8.6 inches overall. How about up against the Spyderco PM2? Spyderco PM2 coming in at 8.3 inches overall. How about up against the Benchmade Griptilian, or in this case, the Ritter Hogue? Ritter Hogue coming in at 8 inches overall. And last but not least, the Spyderco Para 3. Para 3 is coming in at 7.25 inches overall. Please excuse my dogs. The noon whistle is going off, and they are not super happy about it. Or maybe they're really happy about it. I don't know. I don't really know why dogs do that. Anyways, how's the action on this guy? Well, typical ZT fashion, as especially these later serial numbers, it's very, very good. This knife is pretty much fall shut. The flipping action is incredible, and the weight of the blade is helping, as well as just the general tolerances of this knife. It's just excellent. The flipper tab is also shaped in a way that's going to be friendly. It does not have aggressive jimping on it, and it's more of a light switchy flipper tab, but the detent strength and mass of the blade are going to ensure that even if you're flipping it straight up and with your thumb, it is going to deploy, as you can see there. I kind of gave it a wimpy flip there. I'm very, very happy with that. Let's go ahead and do a hardware check. Now, this knife looks to be completely unused, so I'm going to be very careful here. Go ahead and get out my WIA magnetic driver and WIA bit selector, two very inexpensive items that I can recommend to literally everybody. If you check out my Amazon store, scroll down to where it says knife maintenance. It's got these two items as well as a whole bunch of other stuff that is just amazing in terms of knife maintenance and care and just, you know, keeping everything cleaned up. So check that stuff out. I'm going to guess, like a lot of ZTs, that everything is T8 across the board, which always makes me super happy. So let's check this pivot here real quick, very carefully. Yeah, pivot is T8 at least. And then the handle screws are definitely T8. I wonder if the pivot is actually, yeah, that appears to be T8. Now this screw might be, yeah, that one's probably T6, but I don't care about that screw, and I don't care about the pocket clip screws as much, because you don't necessarily have to take that stuff off when you're breaking it down, especially that guy. You shouldn't be taking that guy out. That should be something that ZT does, you know, warranty-wise anyway. So that's fantastic. Very, very, very happy about that. How's the carry profile? So I wouldn't say that this is a thin knife, but I also wouldn't say it's a thick knife. It's got contoured titanium scales, textured even. You guys know how much I love that. You can see their thickness is a little bit thicker than the Para 3, but this is like a functional thickness because it's excess thickness that's creating contouring, which is always something that I prefer over a flat scale, even if the flat scale is a little bit thinner. Why? Because it fills out my hand a little bit better. It feels more natural, helps me feel like I've got a better purchase on the knife, and it kind of exudes quality, a quality that you don't get with a flat scale. So I really like contouring, and I'll take a little bit of excess thickness to get it. That's thickness. How about in terms of like height? It does have a flipper tab sticking out there, so if you carry other stuff in your pockets, your knife pocket besides the knife, that might bother whatever else is in there. In terms of overall height, it's not taking up too much more room than the Spyderco PM2, but definitely more than the Spyderco Para 3. It's not anything outside of the realm of reasonable though, so I wouldn't say. I mean, this. Sorry about that, my phone cut out. Anyways, this knife is not what I would call, a knife that's in the realm of crazy in terms of carry profile. It's really just going to be overall size. For those, for some people, the thing that's going to kill it for them is going to be the overall size and weight of the knife. We are looking at titanium here, and we are looking at a fairly thick stock. Let me go ahead and show you guys the inside of this knife. Sorry, looking for my flashlight. You can see there is some pretty substantial milling, especially on that front scale there. And then in typical ZT fashion, I'm sure we are looking at about 155 thousandths on the blade stock here. Let me make sure this is zeroed out and give you guys this measuring here, 150 thousandths. So not super duper thin, and definitely, if we're looking at basically a 4-inch blade. So this is going to be a lot of knife coming in at 5.54 ounces. That's definitely going to be too much for a lot of people. If you're somebody who works outside, you carry around a lot of tools on you, you're not going to notice 5.5 ounces. But if you work in an office and the only tool that you carry on you is basically your folding knife, and you're wearing dress pants or, thinner pant material, or maybe you wear athletic shorts on a regular basis, this knife is not going to work for you unless you just want to force it and ignore it. Which some people do, and that's perfectly fine. So yeah, pretty big knife, no matter what you go by there. Anyways, let's go ahead and talk about, did we go over everything? I always forget sometimes to go over certain things. I think we covered everything. Let's go ahead and talk about the anatomy of this knife. Right off the bat, I want to point out that I absolutely love the scales on these. Very simple milling on the scales, and then they're contoured. It's just beautiful. ZT does a fantastic job of this. I don't know why they don't do more textured titanium. Well, I've seen it on this, a number of other models, and then like on the old ZT 0560, they did some beautiful golf ball textured contoured scales on the frame lock side, and even the G10 was textured really well. ZT does a fantastic job of this. In fact, better than most that I've seen out there, and I'm always really happy to see when they do that. It's absolutely beautiful. It's ever so slightly reflective, but more matte than anything, and it gives it an amazing contrast with the tumbled blade. This is a very, very good looking knife. The lines on it are just awesome. I think that's what attracted a lot of people to it. It's a shame that it's discontinued. I'm going to go ahead and say this. I have said here recently that, now I know that ZT has a new model out that sort of is a more back to their roots model. But for the longest time, to me, this was the last amazing, I mean, yeah, there's some 0393 Sprints in there, but this was the last really, really good model by ZT before they kind of flew off the rails and did a bunch of stuff where people are like, what is going on? Yeah, spoiler alert, I really like this knife, but that's truthfully what I think there. So anyways, let's take a look at this blade. This is a CPM 20 CV blade. It does have it's basically the same profile as the original custom Harpy. We have this, it's sort of a recurve harpoon clip point. That is wild. I generally don't like recurves, both for aesthetic reasons and because I don't like sharpening them. Some people are really good at sharpening them. I'm not, so I don't like it, right? It creates a problem for me. However, you do gain the benefit in the cut of being able to draw the material into the main belly of the blade, which is the purpose of a recurve, right? If there's a purpose beyond that, I don't know. This area up here creates a very comfortable place to rest your thumb. You're quite a ways from your index finger, so it kind of feels like you're stretching a bit, but this is a comfortable place to bear down on the knife, I suppose, if you're carving into some wood or something like that. It's really nice. And then this jimping up here, unlike some other Les George ZT collaborations and even some actual Les George Midtex and Customs, that jimping is actually functional. A lot of, like on his VECP and his Talos, the actual Midtex, the ones that I mean, I know there are custom versions of it, but the Midtex, I was like, this jimping is kind of non-functional. But anyways, Really great. You can see that there is a flat that carries out to about 70% the length of the blade, and then most of the thickness is carried out to like 85%. So I would call this a strong blade shape. There is quite a bit of room for it to drop down towards the cutting edge, and it does get reasonably thin down here. Not insanely thin, but reasonably thin. So it's going to be able to do a whole bunch of stuff. Are you going to be able to skin tomatoes? To the point where the material that you shave off a tomato is actually lighter than air and it could fly away from you? For what reason, I would have no idea, but could you do that with this knife? No, you can't. But that's not what people normally expect from their knives. For the most part, they just expect it to cut. The nice thing is despite it being a fairly thick blade, there's nothing in the cutting path. So if you're going to go from light food prep to cutting open a cardboard box to doing some carving into some wood or something like that, you're going to kind of juggle different tasks. I think this blade shape is going to do pretty well at that, right? Like I said, the flipper tab's great. There is a little sharpening tool. I always forget to point that out. The detent strength on this guy is just perfect. Oh, I just love that. No detent lash, no wiggle, right? It's just awesome. I really like that. There's some nice shouldering right here around the stop pin, so that's going to help with wear over time. Really good. No double clutch, meaning somebody wanted me to explain this the other day. Double clutch is when you move the lock bar out of the way and you push this down and it meets your fingernail. If the detent ball is completely on the surface of the blade, then you don't have to reposition right here. You can just close it. However, see right here, right there, it's meeting the detent ball. There's still a little bit of room. So when I push it to here, the detent ball is now up on the surface of the blade, which means I can safely close it. If my finger was up here and the detent ball was kind of on the same point, then maybe when I let go of this blade and go here, oh, now it's back up over the detent ball, so then I have to sort of push it, and then it creates this secondary detent where the knife might fly. It creates an issue. That's why I call it a double clutch. Not everybody calls it that. But there isn't a double clutch on this knife. I was just demonstrating what it might look like. But anyways, I love the show side pivot. I think I'd like it more if it were all color matching, but that's okay. Some people like the black on the titanium. I think it looks good. No sharp edges anywhere. Everything's nicely contoured. Nice big hardware. You've got a pocket clip position for right hand or left handed. So even though it is a right handed frame lock knife, left handed people can still carry it. There is a lanyard hole that is out of the way. No issue there. It could be a little more out of the way or non-existent to push the pocket clip up a little bit higher, but it's not really that big of a deal. I do not mind the standoffs back here. These bronze titanium gear pattern standoffs, I think they're okay. Some people didn't like them. I think really where it looks a little weird is on the pocket clip. I do not like the shape of the pocket clip, and the bronze on the outside kind of looks funny to me. In here, it's like, ooh, neat, the little surprise on the standoffs, right? But out here, it's like, it's a little too much. I think I would have preferred a different pocket clip and a black, like just a regular black deep carry pocket clip that ZT does all the time would have been just fine. It is actually a titanium pocket clip, the way I understand it. But I don't know. I just don't want it. It's kind of weird looking. It doesn't carry very deep. And then this, it's made even more shallow by the position of the lanyard hole, which I don't think really needs to be there. But in any case, it doesn't carry that shallow, and it still does its job. And it's not sticking up enough to really catch on something and bend out. In any case, Zero Tolerance is pretty good about replacing pocket clips if you need it. So I suppose it's really not that big of a deal. It does have a steel lock bar insert that doubles as the over travel stop, so that's always nice. You can see there it's locking up at engagement. Well, yeah, we'll call that about 40% maybe. And then your centering is absolutely dead perfect, which is generally the case on ZT knives. Guys, this is going to be a fairly quick review unless I decide to just go on a big ramble, but this knife feels ZT to me. Yes, it's on bearings. Yes, it technically would be more hard use oriented if it were on phosphor bronze, or for you cold steel fans, if it had a triad lock and wasn't a frame lock. I get it. I'm just kidding. I like cold steel knives. I just can't resist an opportunity to poke fun. But I love this knife. I love the stone washing on the blade. I love the blade profile. I love how big it is. I love the flipping action on it. I love the textured titanium. Please, not just ZT, but all companies, more micro milling on titanium. It looks so good, especially when it's anodized. And then some of these companies go out of their way and they like anodize the ridges so that you have contrast between whatever the main color is and then the ridge, right? So if you did like a blue at base and then you did gold up on the ridges, not saying that that's universally accepted aesthetically by everybody, but it's nice to have that option, But I love textured titanium. I just think that this knife was so well executed and it's so comfortable in hand. We didn't talk about ergonomics. So much room on the handle, right? It's very, very comfortable. There's no, weird jimping under here. There's a little bit, but it's not sharp enough to really bother you, right? Easy access to the lock bar. This thing is just a joy to flip. And with that fall shut action, right? I really feel like I could use this knife for a whole bunch of different stuff. And at the same time, I enjoy, like, it's a functional tool, right? But at the same time, it has all these nice features that I really enjoy. This was kind of where the sweet spot occurred. I've talked about this before in my ZT knife discussions, where ZT started off as like this just hardcore, like so unnecessarily hardcore just for the sake of being hardcore, right? Everything was super overbuilt. Everything was super thick behind the edge. It was way too heavy. It was just insane. And it was like the assisted 0303 with the serrations. That's what I think when I think of old school ZT. The 0300 up to the 0303, right? With the big alligator texturing, and it's got the tiger stripe, and it's like 155 thousandths. It's a recurve. It's super tall, mega thick behind the edge, and it's got serrations. It's just like, bah! It's just way. And they kind of backed off from that, right? They kept more. They kept the larger knives. They kept, it was still a thicker blade stock, but it was ground a little bit better. More, and they were collaborating with people that were, really, not to say that Ken Onion and Mick Strider, who were the designers, I think, of the 0300 up to the 0303, not to say they didn't know what they were doing, but the designs that they were using, when collaborating with these makers and using their designs, these designs still had that kind of like overbuilt, tough, big, aggressive feel, but not so much. And there was more refinement. There was more elegance, right? It was a little bit more appeal to people who like to carry and use their tools, but want them to have that extra, that X factor, right? I think the 0920 best accentuates, like this, to me, this is like where the peak of ZT was, right? During this time, they had some amazing models that catered to a lot of different people, and this knife really showed off what they were capable of. Even to this day, even though this model, I think, was more, did it come out in 2016 or 2017, right? I mean, we see a lot of stuff that was around the same price as this one today that has the same level of fit and finish, the same, going above and beyond in terms of like the contouring, the texturing, and using 20CV, using, it being a titanium frame lock on bearings and having the titanium barrel spacers, the titanium pocket clip, right? We see that today, and people are like, wow, look at all this extra detail and stuff, right? And yeah, sometimes they inlay carbon fiber and all this stuff, but anyways, what I'm saying is ZT was capable of doing that. And they showed it with this knife. And then they pulled away from this and they started going smaller and weirder designs and just not, I mean, some people liked it, but I feel like a lot of people were like, can you not do, like, there was a nice balance and you kind of started to lean off to one side, right? So anyways, that's my rant. This is such a short video, but I mean, truthfully, this was just a great model by ZT. If you find one for a reasonable price in the secondary market and you trust the person you're buying from, then go for it because you're going to be really, really happy with it. What's a reasonable price? I'm not going to tell you what I think a reasonable price is because it's up to the individual. Given that this knife is discontinued, you cannot buy, I mean, maybe there's still a couple floating around on there as of February 2020, but for the most part, you cannot get this knife brand new. So if it looks like a good price to you, expect to, I think a reasonable price for this knife is basically right around the same price that you tend to pay for most ZT or WE knives, right? I think we all kind of understand what I'm getting at there. I don't want to be too specific because it'll make people mad on one side of the fence or the other. But yeah, I think most people are going to be happy with this. If you don't like big knives or you don't like recurves and you can't get over the bronze pocket clip or the shape of the pocket clip, or maybe you don't like the barrel spacers, then maybe this isn't going to be for you. But for everybody else who's like, yeah, I like what I see, is it made well? It's definitely made well. I think this is some of ZT's best work, and I just really like this knife. I'm so appreciative. Again, thank you so much for letting me take a look at this because this one was on my list, and I'm just happy I got to experience it. Like I said, links in the description for some other amazing knives, including a category in my store that's all ZT knives, so please feel free to browse that. That's going to be pretty much it today, guys. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like, If you'd like to check out my other content, I do, of course, have lots of videos of knives that are either expensive or inexpensive that I do or don't like, so check those out. And if you enjoy all my content, go ahead and click on this Metal Complex logo right here and subscribe because there's definitely more coming. Thanks again for watching, everybody, and have a great day.